Hi, Dr. Bob Smith. Just wanted a quick update. Mitochondria theory of aging basically was postulated by Denham Herrenbach over 50 years ago in 1956. He said that command and control basically occurs through the mitochondria. We still haven't got all the information, but what we do have is pretty amazing, so let me explain. We realize that the eye has specialized receptors that feed signals to mitochondria created by mitochondria and translate it into a signal type that goes through the nervous system and stores in the mitochondria in the brain. Our nose, remarkably, in the adult, you can have up to 50,000 smells that you can identify, and this is all occurring by these receptors that work on these mitochondrial driven receptors that pick up the information, translate it, again, storing it in mitochondria in the brain. Inside our intestines, interception, the idea, sensation that you have to go to the bathroom, cramps, that sort of thing. All that's translated into signals that stores in the mitochondria of our brain and our signals of our skin. Hot, cold, pressure, light touch, tickling, that sort of sensation. All that's registered and sent through to the mitochondria of the brain. Interception, from the bigger standpoint, our whole body actually has position sense, not just the inner ear sensation. We can tell that we're laying down or standing up by the sensations of gravity that we're picking up on our skin. That's also put into the system. Hearing, balance, all of these are specialized electrical signal translations through mitochondrial systems that allow for this information to be stored in mitochondria. The tongue, taste, such as sweet, sour, the fact it's hot, the fact it's cold, bitter, those sort of signals are picked up, signaled through the time, and in turn translated through the mitochondria and stored in the brain. The point being is what we realize the convergence hub for all this information is run through sensory systems for the mitochondria. What became a little bit surprising was we realized that we don't really see with our brain. Paul Bach-y-Rita pointed out that our eyes are not how we see. It's actually the brain that does the function. And he proved this quite nicely with this lollipop here I'm going to show you in a few minutes was from the original design they created where they used an entirely different system. They would take a camera, they could draw an X or a circle, it would be digitalized, run through the monitors, information, and become a vibrational signal that would be translated onto vibrating dots, 400 of them laying on this pallet that was against the skin this person is laying up against, and this person couldn't see. But they could tell and appreciate that an X was in front of them or a circle because their skin would translate that information to something they had as an image, as a visual picture. As amazing as that is, look at this. This is where that same lollipop design has been instrumentally redesigned. Obviously, computer technology has exploded with the ability to micronize, and it picks up that camera signal. When they turn that card around, she'll be able to tell you that that's the 10 of club, even though this particular girl couldn't see. Inflammation is also a signal that always goes through mitochondria and is registered and picked up. Our problem is that man-made chemicals around us are speeding up the aging process of our heart, our brain, and even our brain's ability to function normally and to let us know what we're doing. This is being done by plastics in our environment that are causing changes in the mitochondria, the chemicals in our food, the Teflon, the non-stick surfaces they put in the bags to keep them from leaking when you were making popcorn. Those ended up being a problem because they also caused issues with the calcium signaling with the mitochondria. Excess MSG, monosodium glutamate, as well as the other 120 some odd different glutamate compounds that have the same impact on mitochondria. All of these environmental exposures have impacts on all of these different critical areas. So when we look at it on the bigger picture, remember high blood sugar, they've said causes a problem in the brain, and they're calling this type 3 diabetes because the excess amounts of sugar are causing reactive oxygen stress and damaging the brain. It's a type of Alzheimer's. And the problem with that is when you think about it, it's basically lowering the production of ATP, which is what we describe as mitochondrial brownout or acquired mitochondrial dysfunction. And basically, that means you have less energy, brain fog, that sort of symptoms can be directly traced back to this. The idea that the body was running on an electrical system was first postulated way back when somebody took a torpedo fish that's a fish that could be found that basically can produce about 800 volts, and it uses that to stun its prey. And that ability to do that turns out to be linked into this. There's basically the stack of looks like coins, and that's what they look like looking straight down on them, but from the side view, this organ produces that electrical charge. The fellow that found this basically uh, had basically been looking at it from an entirely different standpoint. Voltaire had basically came out with a stack of these, and he made our first real man-made battery. But galvanism, the theory, basically, he was calling it animal electricity, and Voltaire made a pile mechanically after different two dissimilar metals and put a electrolyte in between and made the first pile battery. And what's amazing about that phenomena is for all this time that was told us that that meant that animal electricity was not a real phenomena. It is. It's just the theory that Galvani had thought about was not correct. But it is the fact we do use electrical signals in our body. And in fact, we use those signals to, as a whole system, monitor our body. And it's not just the source of problems, it's actually what monitors if we have problems. It helps us adapt to our environment, our metabolic, as well as to our physical needs. And it gives us resiliency. The power that we use comes from there. If we protect the mitochondria and defend the mitochondria, we stay healthier. These signals reestablish healthy cell communication, and that's all part of it. Because what happens when these signals are not correct, we've named. We say neurological disorders, as in autism as an example, and it can have damage to the mitochondria as a component to it. Skeletal muscle parts. The metabolic disorders, we know for a fact diabetes causes a problem. Mitochondrial disease themselves, there's a primary type of mitochondrial disease, not the secondary one that I'm talking about. The primary ones are the genetically driven ones that are fortunately fairly rare because most of them are fatal. Many cancers directly have tie into mitochondrial dysfunction. Heart disease has its basis in mitochondrial dysfunction. Many neurological diseases are tied in also. Our respiratory problems can be. Most of the vascular problems are directly linked to effects that's being driven to the mitochondria. Aging is a mitochondrial phenomena, and therefore a lot of these different patterns tie together.